Welcome to the Heat Check, the podcast formerly known as the Hot Corner. We changed the name between our last episode and now, so welcome to the inaugural episode of Heat Check. I'm Abhishek Goyal. I'm here with
Daniel Constantino,
Ethan Dewald, Dylan Wolfson,
Aaron Jaffe,
Brandon LaRocco,
Logan Rakes,
and we got a very good episode lined up for you guys today. So buckle up; it'll be a ride. All right. So the first thing that we're going to be talking about today is the one and done rule with college basketball athletes. This is a very highly debated topic as to whether they should be allowed to, exciting basketball prospects should be allowed to enter the National Basketball Association after their senior year of high school, or whether they should have to have a year in the NCAA in college basketball before beginning their pro career. So, Brandon, tell us a little more.
Yeah, so the one and done rule was implemented a little bit before the 2006 NBA draft. And the rule basically states that players have to be age 19 or older to be eligible to enter the NBA draft. So that leaves a lot of players, since they don't really have any other option, they may as well go 1 year in college. Because the other rule would be another way to be eligible for the draft is to play 1 year under a professional contract. So that would mean players going overseas, playing in Euro leagues or the Chinese leagues for 1 year, playing out a full contract, and then heading to the NBA after that. And that is a lot more work than just going 1 year in college. However, the topic is one for debate, as a lot of people say that high school athletes, if they feel that their abilities are good enough for the NBA, they feel as if they should have the choice to enter the NBA straight out of high school rather than going 1 year in college. And there's a lot of reasons for this. One thing is the risk for injury, especially. A lot of people feel as if players are risking their career right when they step into college because injury can happen anytime. I mean, we saw what happened to Kevin Ware. That ended his NBA dreams right on the spot. I mean, an injury like that, and that could happen to any college athlete. So the risk for injury is very high in college, and that can ruin an NBA career. That and money. These players aren't allowed to make any type of money off of sponsorships. They don't get paid by the NCAA. They don't have another source of income, and a lot of these kids, they may not have a great background, so they need to be able to provide for their family right away. And they're not able to when they go 1 year in college.
Yeah, I think the biggest question here is really about the money. It's definitely one of the bigger things. For a lot of people, it's about providing for their family, where maybe there were a lot of things that their families had to sacrifice for them to be nationally recognized out of high school so that they can go to, or that they would have the opportunity to play at an elite college basketball program. There are a lot of things that have probably been on the line that maybe it's been difficult seeing ends meet. So a lot of people argue that, they're getting a free college education, whereas the player looks at it like they aren't getting any money and they're just risking themselves for another year, like you said, with the injuries. So a lot of people do play in Europe, and they find work there, and they're able to provide for their families and declare for the draft. Now, this is not the traditional path for most NBA prospects, because you kind of want to get drafted, and college basketball does provide a very good platform for scouts and such to see your talents and kind of assess you against the rest of people in college. So it's kind of a stepping stone from high school to the league.
Yeah, luckily the current state of the one and done rule is the league is looking to change it. I think they said by 2020 or 2021 the rule should be done, but not traditionally like the rule is just done for. Adam Silver who is the current NBA commissioner, he kind of wants to add some changes onto the rule and make it so, yeah, you can come into the draft out of high school. However, if you choose to go to college, then you have to spend at least 2 years there. So basically going through MLB's draft type rule where players, I believe the rule is that they have to stay 2 years in college before they enter the draft.
I believe so too. Yeah.
So a lot of people, obviously highly debated topic, people feel that rule is not finalized. Like I said, still subject to changes, whether people that go to college should spend 2 years there, and on the other hand, they would just go straight out of high school if they chose to. But this topic is still up for debate. A lot of people there are people that feel as if they should spend 4 years there, 4 years in college.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of question as to what they're doing in their first year in their first and only year in college for a lot of these prospects, given that the basketball season, especially at the higher Division I programs, they take up a lot of time, like more than your average college extracurricular activity. I mean, for crying out loud, if your team's good, you're literally out of school for 2 months from March to April, just playing in the tournament, of course. And not to mention practices before the season starts, in the summer even. They have workouts, and then practices all throughout school year during exams, and then, of course, travel schedules, tournaments, all that. So if that is their first year in college and they aren't really in class, then one might question what the value is in forcing them to sit there for 1 year.
Yeah, I definitely think with the idea of people saying, like, oh, they're getting a free education, right? Like, a big part of that is they're not there for the education. They're there to play basketball. It's the same as a gig in Europe for a year, but it's just more convenient for them. And it's a more, like, national stage to put them on, right? More people have heard of Zion Williamson and Cam Reddish than some dude who's balling it up in some European league or some Chinese league. So I think that's a big part of it. I think, especially when you also talk about the NCAA with, like, a lot of these corruption scandals that are going on where they're, like, you know, wiring players behind their back. Like, you're not going to see as much of that if these high-end talent guys like DeAndre Ayton, like Zion Williamson, who would have been drafted out of college, just get in the NBA right away, get paid legally, instead of, you know, these kind of corruption things that give teams like Arizona, like, an unfair advantage.
Yeah, so that's the other thing. I mean, it really could be from a good place where a university is trying to help out the family that the family or the player that is part of their program is helping bringing so many millions of dollars into their university, really. But because the NCAA has so many rules and stuff on that, the players are not allowed to, like, sign and, like, sell anything and make really any money off of their college game. So this is really the issue. So.
Yeah, me personally, I definitely feel as if the one and done rule should be abolished. I don't like the rule at all. For a variety of reasons. I'm glad that they're making initiatives to remove that rule, but the NCAA definitely exploits athletes for their personal gain because college athletes are not making any of the profit that the NCAA makes from the televised games or anything like that, plus lack of sponsorships. So they're going in there, they're basically paying for a chance to go to the NBA when you're drafted straight out of high school. That's 1 year salary that you're not losing. Rather than you spend 1 year in college, you're losing that 1 year salary. And like I said before, a lot of these guys' situations, they may need that 1 year salary right away.
Another thing is that these people who are drafted to playing or who go and play in college for that 1 year, they're taking the spot of someone else who wants to go and play for 4 years and also get an education, whereas these other people are just going to get 1 year out of the way, and they're taking away an education that a lot of them probably don't really take very seriously from someone who would really like that education, who would actually use that education in the future.
I think it's just, like, one of the main themes, or at least one of my main points here, is that college basketball wouldn't be dead if the one and done rule is abolished. I mean, it was thriving, it was doing really well before it. It's the type of thing where it's just going to become less about these really high-end talent players and more about guys who are with the program for 4 years, about team chemistry, and kind of become a sport of its own instead of just being about, all right, where are these guys who are going to be NBA stars going for 1 year beforehand?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I think that's the other thing. Like, if we talk about, like, who the one and done rule really benefits, it would be, or who abolishing the one and done rule would really benefit. It'd be that upper echelon of high school players, like a Zion Williamson. But at the same time, there are a lot of players who put in 4, 3, 2, even 1 year in college, and they make a name for themselves, and then they end up getting drafted. Just look at Dante DiVincenzo from Villanova. He goes from having not really being on anyone's draft boards, maybe a 2nd-round pick, probably looking to get a workout with a team after the draft, to exploding in the in March Madness, having pretty much winning them the national championship, off 28 points and blocks and draining every three, and now he's doing well in the Bucks. So it's not like eliminating that that platform would be a good idea, because it wouldn't be eliminated. People will still get to see them ball out. But
going off of what you were talking about as far as who would benefit from this, it's more who is going to be affected by, if you were to get rid of this rule entirely, say tomorrow it's done, over, pretend like it never happened. Is anyone really going to be negatively affected by this? When you think about it, this can only help people for the most part. These are the athletes that, for reasons that could be entirely up to them, being that they need salary straight out of high school, like we had talked about. They need to care for their families. They need to get started somewhere instead of wasting a year at college and taking away a spot from another applicant or athlete that may want to have a long-term commitment, like most or other athletes would, or taking the spot of someone who's trying to not go for sports at all. So they're trying to just get money straight out of high school. But the people that are going to go and commit to 3-4 years of college basketball aren't going to be affected by some person not being there. In fact, if anything, that's less, again, this is such a small percentage of people that will actually be able to, that will apply this directly to them. But college basketball, I agree, is not going to be hurt by this at all. There are so many other people that want to play long term, make a name for themselves, get into the NBA, and just completely ball out. But for those people that, by God, are good enough to get straight into the NBA out of high school, you shouldn't be stopped from going straight there if you're good enough to play. I mean, if you're good enough to play, you're going to get in there and play. And the people that go for 3 to 4 years are going to get good enough that they'll get in and play also.
Yeah.
So really, I mean, it's not like you're taking anything away from anyone by getting rid of this rule. I can see kind of where they were going with it, where they wanted a shot at for students to go to college to play. I think they were trying to kind of get more kids into college to kind of make it more interesting and also prevent just lots of high schoolers trying to go out for the NBA. But really, short and skinny of it is, there's not going to be that much backlash, I think, from getting rid of this. You're only going to help other people that are getting opportunities they didn't get before, and everyone else, life goes on as normal.
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, even before the one-and-done rule was established, it's not like every player in the draft was straight out of high school. I mean, you have to be elite to be able to come out of high school. You have, I mean, in my opinion, I don't think Zion Williamson needs to go to college. I think he could have came in the league straight out of high school, and be able to develop in the league. Because I know a main argument is college is the time for players to really develop their skills, but LeBron, he didn't need to develop his skills in college. I mean, he was ready for the league, and I think
he turned out just fine, right?
I mean, I think he turned out just fine, exactly. And I'm not saying every high school prospect is LeBron.
Not everyone is a LeBron.
Not everybody is LeBron, exactly. I know a lot of people like to compare Zion to LeBron, which is very odd. Not even close to the same player, but Zion could have definitely came to the league right out of high school. But the thing is, not many players are able to do that. So I think maybe we see a little, if the one-and-done rule is done, no pun intended, the one-and-done rule is done, I don't think we see crazy fluctuations in the amount of people that go in the league straight out of high school. I think before they estimated probably 6 or 7 players total from high school average that come into the league out of high school before the one-and-done rule was established. I don't think that we see crazy numbers. The only downfall I can imagine from the rule being done is players coming out of high school that overestimate their abilities, and then they enter the draft and they don't get drafted by a team. So now they're kind of stuck in the awkward phase where they're going to have to wait to enter a college, and they're kind of stuck with instead of the 1 year salary gap before, now they're stuck with a 2 year salary gap because they missed out on that college application. So that's the only bad part I can imagine from the rule.
Yeah, my thing is, I think we've watched a little bit of Zion Williamson this year.
Yes, we have.
The college basketball season's already started. He has gotten off to a great start. He puts up insane numbers, and it is at Duke. It is at one of the best, probably the best team in college basketball, in my opinion. They have the best freshman class. But I think it's important for a lot of people, probably even him, if you want my honest opinion, to be able to do that in college. It's one thing from going from being like a viral sensation and having everyone watch your hoop mixtape and everything on YouTube, but to see him put up, like, he'll go like 11 for 12, 8 for 10, or whatever.
Crazy
from the field.
field goal percentage.
Yeah, he has wild field goal percentage, and he shoots a lot of shots. Like, he's not afraid to take his jumper. He, of course, dunks on everyone, gets fast breaks and throws down crazy dunks. But it's the combination of the dunks and the numbers and really the basketball IQ. And I think it's really important, for me at least, to see that in college. I'm not saying that everyone needs it, because the only problem that I see is that, let's say Zion decided not to go to college and we never got to see him put up like 28 against the best team in the country besides them, and he just goes to the league and averages like 12.
Yeah.
Like, he has like a highlight dunk every once in a while, but he gets like 14 points a game, and he's just okay.
But see, even that, if he came in out of high school, came in the league with 14 points in a rookie season, he would be able.
That's a good rookie season.
First off, that's not even bad for rookie year. What did Lonzo average? He probably averaged around 12 last season, something like that. He had an okay rookie season. But Zion would be able to develop, because he's developing under the Coach K system, which greatest coach in college basketball history.
Yes.
I think we can all agree
Facts.
on that. Okay,
Agreed.
facts. But then he's going to go to the NBA. So he's had some time to develop in college, but I feel like overall for him as a player, it would be better for him to just go straight into the NBA, be able to develop his game around the NBA style, because college basketball is different from NBA basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a whole different world. But I think it would have benefited him better if he would have been able to come in right out of high school, develop his skills around an NBA head coach.
It definitely would be interesting to see what would happen, especially given his size. I think he's NBA ready physically.
Yeah, he's a grown man.
He is a grown.
He's a grown ass man.
He's
Sorry,
very
Mom.
grown. He's very grown. But yeah, I mean, I think that it really should be the player's choice.
Yeah.
Like, if you want my honest opinion, my ideal solution would be there's no rule on. You need a year in college. You can apply. You can go to the draft straight out of high school, but you shouldn't have to like stay 2 years if you are going to college.
So do you think overall it's a good thing that they're starting to make strides to remove this rule, or at least change it?
I think it's a good thing. I think it boosts the NBA's profile. People might argue that it like diminishes college basketball or whatever, but I don't think it does. I mean, if you look at March Madness, like from 2010 to 2018, they're all crazy tournaments. You always see crazy things.
Ain't hurting.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we watched highlights the other day, or not, maybe like last week, 2 weeks ago. I mean, it's going to be like that.
Yeah.
If you think about March Madness, just on that point, like, a lot of people don't watch March Madness thinking, oh, I want to see the best players ball out. They say, I want to see the next Loyola Chicago. I want to see the next VC.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of the big parts, the underdogs, and you're not getting players like Zion on those teams.
Yeah, that's true. Also, it's important to point out that, going back to the money thing, is the NCAA tournament is currently being broadcast by like the TNT, TBS, like Turner Media like group, CBS. They're paying them $8.8 billion for 8 years.
And how many
that was the
of that?
extension. That was the extension to the year 2032. Before that, it was a 14-year deal for $10.8 billion.
And how many of that goes to the athletes?
Yeah, a big fat zero.
None.
I mean,
they don't get anything.
yeah. So then not only does the NCAA bring in a lot of money, it's also like for the schools, especially when they win, when they're on the national stage, they get a lot of money.
Oh no, we got a brand new fancy basketball stadium.
Oh yeah,
this year.
brand new stadium. But yeah, the players don't really get compensated for that. I mean, there are always going to be the people that argue, oh, they get the education, they can stay for 4 years if they want, but they don't. That's on them. But
But are they really going to get the education? Like, are they?
They're
showing up to class for attendance, not showing up there to learn geography or something like that. Yeah, are they showing up? That's
the thing. Yeah, in March they aren't showing up. They're nice. They are not in class in March. But yeah.
But overall, very good thing that they're starting to make strides to remove that rule, or at least change it a little bit.
I think it just gives the players more freedom.
Yeah, that's really what it's all about. Give the player the choice. If the player feels that his or her ability is, where to the WNBA.
Yes, sir.
But if they feel as if if a high school prospect feels that his abilities are good enough for the NBA, then he should be able to test his luck and see if the team drafts him.
Yeah.
And if not, he chooses to go to college for 2 years.
Yeah, because ultimately it's the player's risk whether he gets in there or not. Like, there's only so much of the system you can actually work to actually get in there. It's going to be based on ability. So if you go try and get drafted and you fail, then you fail. So, no sweat off anyone else's back.
Yeah, but that's the other question. Do you think just going for 1 year is a bad thing if the player wanted to do so?
I mean,
would you force them to be there for 2 years?
That
sounds a little bad.
Are you talking about if they make the new rule to 2 years, or are you just talking about
let's say they make it like the baseball system we were talking about
where it's
earlier.
2 years?
Yeah.
You're saying
would you want to have it where you could go in after high school, or you could go in after 2 years of college, or would you rather have it you can go in whenever you want?
I mean, that's the thing. I don't really that's cool. They're kind of changing the rule a little bit. But I don't know how I feel about that 2 years in college idea. I don't really know why they chose that, because I feel if you're gonna remove the one and done rule and make it so kids can come in out of high school, I don't know why you would change it. I mean, I guess the trade-off, you'd make it 2 years in college, but I feel like kids should still be able to, if they feel like going to college, they should be able to go for 1 year if they really want to.
Right. I don't think it makes sense to just arbitrarily move it to 2 years, because most of these schools with big basketball programs, they're 4-year universities. So what's the difference really going to make between going for 1 year and 2 years? They should have the freedom to just show up and go for 1 year, and then just to test their luck and grow their skills a little bit, and then try and get drafted. It doesn't make sense to force them to stay in the school if they don't really care about the school. They should definitely have the right to stay for however many years they want, 1, 2, 3, or the full 4, to try and get their degree, instead of arbitrarily setting a number of years that they need to stay at the school.
Right.
I think there might be some benefit. I don't know whether I agree with the 2 years or not. To me, I think it's kind of take it or leave it, because ultimately it's up to the athlete at that stage to determine what he's going to do, because in college, you're not allowed to have an agent. You're not allowed to make any money. Mm-hmm. And if you're coming out of high school, odds are you're not going to have an agent at that time. Mm-hmm. So you're basically on your own. You have to make that decision for yourself, where you're going to either A, land a job, or B, land a position in college to try and play. But there is a possibility that there could actually be a benefit to going 2 years rather than 1, because what if, hypothetically, you were to go to college for 1 year and play, and you have a baller season, you actually do pretty well, and then you get drafted by an NBA team, and then you're not able to acclimate to the changes, and then you're labeled off as a one-hit wonder. It's just one of those things where if you had a second season, yes, there's a huge risk of injury. There's a huge risk of injury, and I understand that that is very big in a athlete's mind.
Not only injury, but also, let's say you do really well your first year and you don't do as well your second year. Let's say your draft stock plummets. You go from being a lottery pick to being a second round pick. Same thing.
Yes, and that's absolutely another worry. But one of those things, what if you had 2 consistent seasons, consistently good seasons, maybe even some improvement, or you have 2 baller seasons, or you have a not-so-good first season and then a baller second season. All of those instances can just increase your potential, your draft stock, if you will, that people are going to want to. They've seen you, they've heard your name, they've seen your face, you've played so many more games. You're only gaining experience. There is a risk for injury and other stuff, so I understand why they wouldn't want to do that. But it's one of those things where, like, if you're going to go, ultimately it ends up just having an athlete have to, like, stick to a decision and actually deal with it. Because, like, if they're going to go into the NBA without going to college, then they have to commit to that and realize that they have to pay for a mistake they're going to make if they don't get in. If you go to college and they're saying now you have to go at least 2 years, if you go in and then you do well and go in, you have to realize, like, I am committing to going to college for at least 2 years. Like, it's just one of those things, like, players have to be held responsible for, like, making a decision and sticking with it.
Well, another thing about that is, like you said, while the risks and reward, maybe the rewards sometimes are better than the risks, I don't think that the NBA should lock you into taking those risks, because maybe the player shouldn't have to take that second season risk just because they wanted to spend 1 year going and honing their skills. They should definitely be allowed, if they so choose on their prerogative, to leave early and go after 1 year and not risk that extra season of doing not so great. Because say they go in, they have a great first season, like Abhishek said earlier, and then their second season that they were forced to play, they don't do well at all, and then their draft plummets and they can't get onto a team where they would have been able to if they had done what they wanted and left a season early. So then that's all on the NBA for kind of screwing them.
That is true, but you also got to think, like, when the NBA signs a player, or in any sport, a player signs a contract which says, I understand that I will play regardless of how good I perform, regardless of, stats or anything else. You are locked in to play however many years are on that or games are on that contract. So it's one of those things that, like, if you are going to go to college, like, could the NBA be screwing someone over? Yes. But so could a multi-million-dollar, multi-year deal for a player that is going to get hurt. Then the NBA is screwed because the team is paying the player and he's hurt. So it's one of those things, like, it's a risk. And could you be getting screwed? Absolutely you could be getting screwed, but it's just one of those things, like, that's why there are contracts, is the player agrees, I will play for this team for this many years, and they will pay me this amount, regardless of anything else that happens. Championship, no championship, stats, no stats, doesn't matter.
Yeah, but they don't sign a contract when they go into college.
Right, but I think it should be considered that way. I think that has to be in the mindset of the player. Like, you got to realize that if this rule passes in 2021, whenever this is supposed to be, and this is the rule that is proposed, like, rules are rules to some extent. So just, you got to decide, like, 2 years, or am I good now? You got to commit, and then you got to go with that decision, and the rest will figure itself out.
See, like, I just don't understand. You give the freedom of going into the league after high school, but then you give them a barrier and you say, okay, but if you choose to go to college, you have to stay there for 2 years. Why not just give them freedom and you can say, yeah, okay, you go to college, you can be eligible for the draft whenever you feel is your best year. This way, you have the best draft stock possible. You're able to grow as a player, learn under coaches, under other players, develop yourself as a player as well, and grow, and feel when you're at your best, you can go into the NBA. I don't understand why you limit freedom in college and not right out of high school.
Oh, I don't understand the college rule either. Like, I'm just defending, like, what, like, if that was the rule, what should be done. I really have no idea why there's even a rule for, like, I think, like, it's the athlete's decision when he's going to go somewhere or not. Like, let the guy go whenever he wants to go. I mean, if he wants to go 4 years, 1 year, 2 year, I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
Like, just, you play, like, you know your abilities, and you are ultimately the one that's going to be taking the risk for your body and your career. So, Like, if you want to go straight out of high school or after 4 years, like, anytime in between there, I think you should have the freedom to leave whenever, because it's your career, it's your job, your dream. So I don't understand why the NBA is forcing the 2-year rule either. I don't really think I don't think it makes sense. Like, it's not even like there's something that I could even pull some sort of, like, abstract idea, like, this is what they're going for. I really can't. I can't think.
Yeah.
About
Well, we'll just have to see what Adam Silver decides on, because it's not an official rule yet. He just said he may propose changes.
And right now, I don't think it's in the NBA's hand to, like, or they definitely aren't negotiating with the high school playing field yet.
No, yeah, they're not even negotiating this rule with the NCAA. I think they're completely out of the discussion.
Yeah.
So we'll just have to see what Adam Silver decides to do. I think the power really is in his hands and the player commission.
Yeah. So we will stay tuned and see what happens. We'll let you know in 4 years if we get an answer.
Yeah, see you in 4 years.
Moving on, in light of Stephen Hillenburg, the creator of SpongeBob's recent unfortunate passing, we decided that we would talk about some of our favorite childhood cartoons.
Yeah. So shout out Stephen Hillenburg.
For sure.
I would like to personally thank him for making my childhood better. SpongeBob was my favorite show growing up.
One of the best shows.
Yeah, I'd argue. We can get into this later, but I'd argue that it was the best show from my childhood, at least.
Oh, for sure, me too. I mean, like, me and my mom watched that show with all the time when I was growing up, and like even to this day, and like the situations that you think you wouldn't be able to come up with we somehow are able to pull a quote from SpongeBob and apply it to any situation.
Yeah, the show's very quotable. I mean, like, you could go on for hours just talking about the funny moments from all the episodes.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, when I broke my leg in high school, I had
this
my
guy.
friends say to me, "My leg."
Of course. Yeah, I was going to talk about how, like, it's not just a piece of our childhood. Like, SpongeBob is very much prevalent in like, our lives today, especially even, just, like, talking about memes.
Yeah,
SpongeBob
yeah,
is huge.
Throughout all of high school, marching band was just a cesspool of SpongeBob memes. So it's still a very major part of everyone's life.
Exactly.
Even today.
I would say even like the content of the episodes, if you go back and watch old like SpongeBob episodes, they have like a lot of adult humor in there for like what's supposed to be a kid's show. And like when I was younger, I wouldn't really catch that, but now that I go back and like watch episodes with my mom, we're like, did he really just say that? Like, is that even allowed?
Yes, the number of second takes I've taken from SpongeBob, like before and then just like recently, it's astounding.
When are you watching SpongeBob with your mom?
That's a
You
great
said,
question.
when am I watching it?
Yeah.
You said, when am I watching it?
Yeah.
I mean, not recently, but, like, over the summer. I mean, whenever it was on, like, occasionally, like, we'd catch, like, an old episode that we like, and, like, my mom would be like, oh, let's watch this old episode. Or, like, this episode was on the other day, and, like, we'll talk about it. And I could probably quote numerous episodes word for word, and I don't know if that's something to be proud of or ashamed of. But I'm going to definitely proud of
Definitely
it.
proud,
Definitely
yeah.
proud of it.
Any other show would be a disappointment, but SpongeBob,
Yeah,
it's
for
proud.
sure.
You'd be proud of that.
Actually, one show I think I could quote
Yeah.
just as much as that would probably be the Clone Wars animated series.
Oh, I
That
never
was
watched
my
that.
show. I spent all of my birthday money buying the episodes on like the iTunes store. Filled up my iPod 4th generation, 16 gigabytes up with those episodes. Yeah, those are the times. And I remember, watching that under my bed covers late at night, staying up binging, every season.
So like the big three, like I guess like networks that happen to show cartoons. I don't want to say Cartoon Network. People might get confused. So you have Cartoon Network, Nickelodeon, and would you count maybe like old Disney Channel really have that many cartoons?
I was thinking like CW maybe, because like that's
Yeah,
where I
like
would also
Saturday
watch.
morning.
I would watch like Yu-Gi-Oh. Wait,
TNT
where was
Boomerang.
Pokemon? Where's Pokemon?
That was Cartoon
Boomerang
Network.
is
Yeah.
like
Okay.
OG.
Boomerang was
is
the old
like-
cartoon.
Oh
They
my
got
God.
retired from Cartoon
Yeah.
Network and went on to Boomerang.
Boomerang. I remember all those like little. I don't even know what they're called. Like those little like transition segments, like with like
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know. I like just thinking about that now is like so nostalgic. But you know, just like the little boomerang thing, like walking around, and like the intro music.
And when you watched Boomerang, there was such a difference between like 8 a.m. versus noon versus 8 p.m. It just like it started out like slow, obviously for like the younger like 5, 6, 7 probably year olds. Noon is probably like the general like all ages, and then you got to like 7, 8 p.m. and it was like all the shows that were like I would imagine like 5th grade and up, and
yeah, and then you get to like 11 p.m. and midnight, and then Adult Swim comes on.
Yo,
and you're
oh
so
my
confused.
God.
I
Yeah.
remember like so many times I would just like be sitting in front of the TV. All of a sudden, like the whole vibe changes.
Oh,
and I'm
yeah.
like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah, like I'm trying to watch like Codename Kids Next Door, and all of a sudden, like I see like a squid
love
with
that
like
show.
3
I love
eyes
that
go
show.
across the screen.
Exactly.
I'm like, nah, it's time for bed.
Yeah, that's how you know.
I really feel like we should talk about Codename Kids Next Door.
I was never into that.
I mean,
That was a great show.
I was personally raised on Cartoon Network. Like, it's kind of bad looking back on it, but I would exclusively watch Cartoon Network shows from like the age of like 5 to I'd say about 9.
I feel like that's early like brand like loyalty right there. Like
it's really early
now
brand
someone might be
loyalty.
Team
I'm like the
Adidas or Nike or whatever.
I was
all
like,
about the
no, I can't
cartoons.
watch any of that Nickelodeon stuff.
Yeah.
But then, then I finally, I turned like, I think like 9-ish, and I was like, oh, SpongeBob exists. And then I finally like explored that, and I was like, I've been missing out on this for like my whole life. But it was a short life, I guess, before then. But yeah, I could talk about Codename Kids Next Door for like a whole day. Really
It's like,
good
what
show.
do you think is like the prime Cartoon Network? What do you think is like the best cartoon that they had?
Best cartoon?
Best cartoon.
From Cartoon Network.
Yeah, we'll go like we'll jump from Cartoon Network and then to Nickelodeon.
Yeah, that works. I mean, I don't think there's any debate over Nickelodeon's best cartoon. No.
Yeah, I mean, I know obviously SpongeBob number 1,
I
but
was
like
gonna say
I got a
iCarly,
number
but-
2 for Nickelodeon. number 2 on Nickelodeon would definitely be Fairly Odd Parents.
Yeah,
That's true. That's true.
Great
that's
show.
true.
That
That
was actually the
crossover
one-
they did with Jimmy Neutron,
Yes.
that
Oh.
blew,
Yes.
when I was like
Yeah.
8, like that blew my mind. I was like,
I did see that.
The different levels of animation, the 3D and the 2D
Yeah.
crossing
yeah,
over.
very weird seeing Timmy Turner in 3D, and
Yeah.
And
now you
Jimmy
know why
Neutron
it's hand
too,
drawn.
Yeah, kind of scarring, honestly.
Very
It
scarring,
was pretty scarring if I'm being honest.
especially when like Jordan Von Strangle went in there in 3D. I was like, nah, turn this off.
That was so bad. Oh my god.
It's better than like a 3D Phineas. That would be
Oh,
Yeah.
modern.
Pyramid Head.
Yeah, why was that their design choice?
I don't know. I mean, it works because it's 2D, I guess. But
His
yeah,
head
it's
is like
really
a
interesting.
Dorito
Yeah,
shape.
I want to know how he puts on a shirt. I want to know. He
I'm
has
gonna go through a few of the Cartoon
Yeah.
Network shows that got.
By all
Going back to
means.
Cartoon Network.
Dexter's Laboratory. Any fans?
Yes, yeah. Mhm.
Johnny Bravo.
Yes.
Uh,
Thank God someone else brought that.
Cow and Chicken was one.
That show was so weird.
That was
It
like
was,
a
that
really-
was weird. It was,
that
it
was-
was kind of before our time.
That was like
Yeah.
very
the
odd.
Powerpuff Girls.
I fuck with
Now,
that.
say
To be
say
honest-
what you want about the Powerpuff Girls. It was low key tough.
Yeah.
It was low key.
Yeah.
Low key tough.
I would say high key tough even. if-
Okay, this is the next one.
Girl power.
Ed, and Eddie.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I can see it.
Shout out
Quality
Great
television.
my
Yeah.
boy Plank.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was about to
yes.
say that.
Plank.
I thought
Plank
it was
is
Pretty
like
much
a-
just like I think with Cartoon Network is like they were going really well for most of 2000s and hit
Yeah.
that like writer's block or something where they try to make all those live action shows. I don't know if you guys remember like Destroy.
Yo,
Build, Destroy.
that
Yeah.
show
Yeah.
was so dumb.
That was bad.
Dude, so what? I remember like that was
Dude,
on
what
for
would
like 3
happen?
episodes.
They-
Yeah, dude, no,
yeah.
dude, what happened? Not dude. So
They
what, yeah.
lost their touch with cartooning. They need to go back to
Seriously.
the heart of cartooning.
Like
they kind
Courage
of brought
the
it
Cowardly-
back with
yeah.
Adventure Time. That was probably one of their recent good ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, that and like regular show for
Regular
sure.
show was
Yeah.
good.
And
I
like,
still think
Well,
that
those are both
I
dead
mean,
now.
I would honestly
They are.
argue that it's either Courage the Cowardly Dog, which I think is like their most like artistic show.
Yeah,
they've
Courage
ever
the
made.
Cowardly Dog was.
But
the
I
next
think the
one.
regular show is their funniest show.
Does
Fat
anyone
Eddie,
remember
Fat Eddie.
Total
So-
Drama Island?
Yes.
Oh
Oh
my
my
God,
god, that was
great
my
show.
shit.
I remember like the first season. Like Young Me was so mad that Owen won. I was like,
Yeah,
spoiler
I
alert, by
fucked
the way.
Eddie.
Sorry
Oh,
for
no.
anybody.
Fuck
Yeah, if you're catching up.
I was gonna rewatch that today. I forgot what happened.
Yo,
That's
Actually,
Man,
no,
got
it
me
just
so
it
heated.
didn't just drop on Netflix like a couple
you
weeks
serious?
ago. Yeah.
All right, I'm about to binge that
Yeah.
tonight. Literally tonight.
yeah.
I remember like 3rd grade, my mom would never let me stay up past like 9, I think is when it was on. She would never let me stay up, and then the next morning I would either get up really early to watch it, and if like I missed watching it. Like if I got up too late or something and didn't have time to finish the episode, somebody at school would always spoil the winner or like whoever got voted off.
Yeah.
That pissed me off.
Why do we like that show so much? Like, why were we so hype?
I think that like it also plays into like
What show are we
how
talking about?
Total Drama Island.
TDI.
Oh, I love that show. Yeah.
Yeah.
TV, sorry.
Yeah. No, I think like that feeds into why people love reality TV so much now. Maybe that like.
I think it was one of those like I don't know if like everyone else experienced this, but like parents were a bit, especially like I know my mom was really big into the show Survivor, and that was literally like an animated kids version of Survivor. So you were almost interested in it because it was so similar to like what your parents were watching, which back then it was like cool. Now it's like that's like not cool at all.
Still making it for some reason. I don't know why, but
when you were younger, like you were like, this is what like adults watch, and so you had that like, I'm watching that too.
I think one of my favorites from Cartoon Network. This may not be a popular decision, but Ben 10.
Good show. Good show.
I feel like Ben 10 is very polarizing in the cartoon.
Yeah.
It is. I feel like some may feel like it's like kind of straying away from what they started with, but I thought it was really good. Even some of the later stuff, which some people may not like. I like just all the different like creatures they came up with and shit.
It's a good concept.
I liked the first few seasons of the show, but then they kind of changed it, and it kind of lost touch with me.
I liked Ben 10. I don't know if it probably like I grew up a little bit and more seasons came out. It was probably a mix of the two, if you want my honest opinion, but I really like that show.
I feel like the second version of Ben 10 was like they tried to make it like more mature because they realized that the original audience was more mature, but it probably lost touch with like a lot of people. I think that's what makes it polarizing.
Speaking of the original version being better than the new one, the original OG Teen Titans on Cartoon Network
So much better than
was
Snaps to that, my friend. Yes,
was one of the argue with me if you will, but arguably one of the best animated series on any network across the board. Like obviously it's different from like SpongeBob. That's like a different type of class. But this was like not even comedy. This was just like almost drama series, and it was like one of the best I think ever.
I think you can argue it was an action based too, right?
Yeah, action definitely. Yeah.
But like action
times it got
not
sad
a comedy.
At times. That's what it really is.
Yeah.
Also, it was like Camp Lazlo was like a real show, right? That wasn't just in my subconscious.
Yeah, that one.
Like that was like that and like My Gym Partner's a Monkey. Like those like were
those
actually
existed.
Those existed, right? Like that wasn't just like a nightmare I had.
Yeah.
Camp Lazlo, it was like obviously it like took place on like a summer camp, and it had like all these different animal characters. The main character I think was like a monkey, and it had like an elephant named his name was Raj. Yeah. And I don't
familiar.
I feel like I'm mixing that and My Gym Partner was a Monkey. I feel like those are the same thing in my mind.
They have like this. I think they both probably came out at the same time.
Yeah, it had like similar animation.
Like we're all the same age.
Yeah, they were very weird shows. I'm not gonna lie.
For some reason I'm thinking of Foster's Home for Imaginary
Yeah,
Kids.
I was waiting for somebody to bring that up.
So,
Yeah.
There's so many classics.
Another one from Cartoon Network might
That might be my favorite. Actually, that might be my favorite.
That was so good.
I remember like the game on CartoonNetwork.com or whatever, where you could like make your own imaginary friend.
Shout out to CartoonNetwork.com.
They had the games.
Oh
I'm telling you,
they had the games on deck. That's why I liked Ed and Eddie so much, because they had this one like race car game.
They had like the demolition.
Yeah,
joint.
exactly. Yeah,
His laboratory, the demolition robot thing.
Nah, I'm talking about
That's different.
the Ed and Eddie one. You like made your own like
Made
car.
your own car,
thing.
yeah.
Oh my
You
god.
just stocked up the engine.
I don't know
and
if
all
any of you guys
different
did the
parts.
Ben 10 game where like you made your own like level design or something, but that was a big one for me.
I think I messed with that. So.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I
Yeah,
think
shout out to
When the Clone Wars put games on CartoonNetwork.com, that's when I started.
That website
That's
was
when I
like
started getting
as
real
much
for
as
me.
like the TV channel for me. At like a certain point, it became that.
Yeah, what I was gonna say was that like I think when it comes to like the interaction that comes outside of just watching the show, I think Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh has that beat by
They
far.
kind of take the cake.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna
exactly.
lie.
And I never got into shows like Ben 10. I didn't watch Teen Titans, like any of those, because my main focus was onYu-Gi-Oh and
Oh my
Pokemon.
I never really got into the TV show or the cards for Yu-Gi-Oh. They always look cool. I was kind of envious of the kids that had them back in the day.
Yeah,
But Pokemon, I was a big Pokemon card
Bro,
guy.
what about like Bakugan?
Bakugan? I was into Bakugan.
Those were fun
And,
to just throw around.
yeah,
like
yeah,
I never watched the show. I never had any cards. I just
literally,
threw
yeah.
them around onto magnets.
What about the Beyblades?
Oh, baby.
Yeah,
Yeah,
same,
those
same
things are
exact
hype.
situation.
Yeah, exactly.
Where, like, I don't really care about the TV show, but like,
Oh, I did both.
TV show?
Very into
Yeah,
both.
there's
Yeah.
a TV show.
That's how it
apparently.
started.
I had no idea.
Yeah. No, there was a
Multiple
Beyblade
like
TV show.
multiple seasons of the TV show.
This is news to me.
And like different reiterations of shows, and like they had like video games.
Right. Yeah.
I don't know
Video
how.
games.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they had an
Video games-
iPhone app.
Yeah.
They had an Apple
Don't
app
ask
for
me
a
why I know
while.
that.
Wow.
The DSi Beyblade game, that was the shit. Oh my god.
I didn't have the DSi game.
Oh, that was so.
Speaking of like DS games, like Pokemon,
Dude.
come on.
Yeah, okay. Obviously, Pokemon's gonna take the cake.
That's all I'm gonna
Except
say.
there is a Yu-Gi-Oh! DSi game, which I spent probably like 90% of my childhood on.
It doesn't
It's
hold
insane.
a candle to Pokemon. I'm sorry.
I don't
I
think.
don't care what your childhood
definitely-
was.
definitely-
You know,
It's like,
you're
nah.
not necessarily wrong, but
Definitely
I
what-
disagree.
Yeah.
Definitely what you said about like outside show interaction, like the fact that we're all in college and like occasionally we will go outside and play Pokemon Go. It definitely says something. It says bad things about us, but it says good things about like the show
There's
itself.
great things about like their marketing and stuff.
Yeah,
and, all
like
that
the fact
great
that we're out here
popularity. Yeah.
walking around like the sunken gardens playing Pokemon Go.
Well, what'd you guys do first? Did you watch the show or play the games first? I'm interested.
Played the game.
Play the game for me.
Well, yeah, since the games came out first, I definitely played the games first.
I was a trading card guy. I remember my cousin, or like I went to my cousin's house. He was the nicest cousin I've ever had.
Okay.
He's still alive. Still is the nicest cousin. He gave me an entire binder of Pokemon cards.
Oh, yeah.
That was probably like
That's
the
a
best
blessing
day
right there,
of my
I'm gonna
5-year-old life.
Is that something with cousins? I got pretty much the same thing, except mine was a gallon-sized Ziploc bag
Okay.
of Pokemon cards. But
Well, yeah. No, I got a whole ass binder.
Moving on to Nickelodeon. You know, I think we all know the main player. We all know number one, the undisputed heavyweight champion of the world, SpongeBob SquarePants.
Yes.
Was there
Shout out
anything else?
Sandy. Shout out.
Like, was there anything
It's
else?
No, yeah,
Fairly Odd
we
Parents,
mentioned
Tom
Fairly
Jerry.
Odd Parents before.
Where was Flapjack? Was that
That was
Cartoon
Cartoon
Network, and
Network.
bad.
That was
a bad show.
briefly
That
Cartoon
was
Network
good.
and then straight to
I
Boomerang
liked
when it's
Okay.
review song.
Definitely a weird show as well.
Yeah. I'm
Like,
trying
I
to
think like Courage the Cowardly Dog did weird better than Flapjack did. It's
that was
my
also
opinion.
Cartoon Network?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I honestly can't think of like any influential Nickelodeon.
Well, because they
Cartoons
didn't
other
do
than those
many
two.
Oh, we have
cartoons.
one. We have one that I think the podcast would like to personally thank. The Ren and Stimpy show.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Wait. That
Oh
was...
yeah.
Well, the
Nickelodeon?
That was
reboot. The
before
reboot.
time.
Oh
the
yeah, that was
reboot.
way before time.
The
Yeah.
reboot.
So for
The
people who
reboot
don't know,
was
we've
there.
been using some of their soundtrack music because it's out of copyright, and it fits really well.
Yeah. Shout out Rugrats.
Oh
Okay.
my
Oh,
god.
Yeah. Okay.
Shout out
Buddy
Hey
Guy.
Arnold. I don't know if anyone. That was kind of before my time. Hey Arnold and Cat
Yeah,
Dog.
like I know the characters. But
Shout out Fairly Odd Parents.
Oh yeah.
Chalk Zone. It's.
That sounds familiar. I feel like I've heard that before.
I didn't really mess with it, but I know what it is.
Yeah.
Jimmy Neutron.
Oh, of
Yeah.
course. Yeah,
Jimmy
yeah.
Neutron. Just the hair. He had me at the
Everything.
hair.
Can you
Everything
pass
got
the
it.
sodium
Got it.
chloride?
You mean
Classic.
Cecil? What's like that? What was that one Nickelodeon cartoon where it was like the surfboard guys? I know I'm not tripping.
What?
They surfed.
bit.
They like
Tripping a bit.
surfed. Unless that was like a Cartoon Network one.
Oh my
No,
god!
yeah.
I don't know what it was called. Maybe,
I
but
know.
I know exactly what
Wait,
you're
are
talking
you talking about? I know it.
Like
It's
the
the same.
surf shop.
I'm telling
Yeah,
you,
it's
if you look it
it's
up.
Cartoon Network, and it's made by the same people.
Oh,
as
I thought it was
Drama
Nickelodeon.
Island, but it's
Yes.
called I don't remember.
Was it
I don't
Surf's
remember
Up?
the name.
No, no.
I was just about to ask
Yeah,
about
yeah,
the
that's what that
like
was.
what channel was that on?
I guess it was. I thought it was Nickelodeon, but I guess I was maybe Cartoon
Kangaroo
Network.
Madagascar.
It's like
Oh, that was Nick.
Nickelodeon.
That
Okay.
was Nick.
Okay.
That I
Nick,
agree
Nick.
with that show.
Nickelodeon.
What about Avatar: The Last Airbender?
I
Anyone
never
else
remember.
watch
I know.
that?
A lot of
Yeah,
people
that
are
was-
really into
what-
that.
What
I-
channel was that on?
That was on
That was
Nickelodeon.
good.
Okay, yeah, that was great.
I love
That was amazing.
That was really good. Too bad the movie did zero justice and was
Right.
honestly insulting to the entire franchise.
Yeah, like you can even go back and watch The Last Airbender right now, and it's still amazing
It's still just
quality.
as good.
Yeah.
Did you find the
It was
show?
called Rocket Power,
Okay.
and it was on Nickelodeon.
Oh,
I knew
so
it
I was
wasn't a
just
bad
thinking of
dream.
different show,
It was made by the creators of Rugrats,
Oh, that's right.
so I knew that wasn't a bad dream. It's actually funny. The characters kind of look like them too.
I don't recognize. Oh, they do.
I mean, like a little bit, maybe not.
It's the same art style.
Yeah, same art
Not the
style.
show I was thinking of.
Yeah.
I knew that wasn't like a bad
They
dream.
made
Like
a show-
nobody answered, and I was like, oh no.
The same people that made Total Drama Island made another show about like a surf shop.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
That's what
of.
me and Dylan were thinking of.
Shout out Danny Phantom. Phantom.
Yes.
that's a great
Yeah.
That was a good like coming of age show
Yeah,
for
I
like.
feel
that was
really
great.
feel that.
Yeah.
What about Kim Possible?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah,
Yes.
that was
Possible.
Loki my shit.
Yes,
Yeah.
sir. Yes, sir.
Aren't they making like a movie, like a live action? No,
I
it's
heard
a live
about-
action
okay,
show.
I heard about that.
They're
Like,
making a live
They're
action.
making like
I
a
heard
live
about that
action
2 years ago,
Does
but
anyone
there's
remember-
been no news.
Does
It's
anyone
been silence.
remember when Disney in Epcot used to have the Kim Possible thing? Maybe just because I'm in Florida.
Yeah.
And
Might
I'm
be
from
in
Florida. I went to
Florida.
Disney a lot, but they used to have this thing where you just go around Epcot and try and solve clues and stuff
Oh,
like
that's
that. And
fun.
it was very it was like Kim Possible themed, and it was the most amazing thing for like an 11 or 12-year-old.
Yeah.
And
Awesome.
naturally, since you're in Florida, the guy who solved it was like some crackhead, right?
It's just another Florida man headline.
Yeah,
Florida man solves mystery.
Dan's gonna be on that one of these days.
he is. Former William and
Florida
Mary
man
graduate.
cures cancer.
Florida man.
I like when I think of like Disney Channel cartoons, like it's just like I don't know why, but like fish hooks takes up like 75%. I don't know why. I don't like.
weird.
I just like it's
I
one of the
don't
main
know what
main
Fish Hooks
cartoons I remember.
It was the one. They were in they had like a school in the fish tank. It was like
What?
you don't remember that, Aaron?
No.
It had like the dude from Cory in the House that voiced like one of the main characters.
Kyle Massey.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
Okay, what I just thought of,
Go for it. Go for it.
was Wonder Pets.
Yes.
The phone is ringing. That every
Oh.
time I hear a phone ring,
What?
I just get like flashbacks.
Dad,
to
forget about a show.
I thought of another show too, and if you, I don't remember, I have no idea what channel it's from, but Wub Wub Wubsy. I remember
Yeah,
my
that was
little
Nickelodeon,
brother
yeah.
watched that.
Bro, how could I forget
Well, if
Little?
we talk about all these shows, we gotta talk about the Backyardigans. I mean.
Yes.
Talk about the Backyardigans.
I don't know what
Oh,
that is.
you've never.
I
heard
feel
of-
really uncultured. Like
Okay,
I
time out.
don't know.
I don't know if it's the greatest because SpongeBob holds the greatest spot, but we gotta talk about Scooby Doo.
Oh,
If we aren't talking about
Oh.
Scooby Doo, we
I
are
know.
talking about childhood. That's what I'm
That's
saying.
yes. Live action Scooby.
yeah. Okay. Honestly,
that was questionable.
Talk about the movie.
but
I like the movie. I'll put myself out there. I said I like the movie.
The movie's like half a porno, dude.
I like
What?
If you go back and watch
so
it-
many, like,
Do I need to watch the
sexual
movie
undertones.
again? This is rough.
Plus, like, Daphne-
I gotta take that back.
Fred and
Daphne
not
was
Velma,
bad, I
Fred and
won't lie.
Daphne are doing like when.
Yeah, like off camera. Yeah, you already know.
I mean, Loki though. Loki. Yeah.
I'm just saying there's a reason why Fred's always with Daphne and Velma
Yeah.
at the same time.
We'll go check out the bedroom.
The little the little Einsteins on Disney Channel. I don't know why. I just remembered that.
Yeah,
I never watched.
They cultured me in music.
Little Einstein's culture.
Yeah, because they used to play all like the old symphonies and stuff. Bro, how could we forget about the Wiggles?
The wig.
Bro, how could we
How could we
forget?
forget about Little Einstein though? That's a
I
good
said
thing.
Little
you said
Einstein.
Baby
Brickhead.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's Baby Mozart is what.
I think we're also forgetting like Disney Channel.
That's true.
Lilo and Stitch.
Oh,
The
man.
Sweet Life of Zack and Cody.
what?
That's
That was an animated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fool.
Crap.
You played yourself.
Animated. We gotta stick to. Yeah, we gotta specify animated versus not.
Yeah.
Lilo and Stitch is definitely
Still part of
up
my
there, though.
childhood though. Sweet Life on deck.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sweet Life on Deck was.
Mr. Mosby.
Well, for
has
leaving
influenced
cartoons,
my entire
then
life.
Wizards of Waverly
He always
Place has
says.
got to be up there.
for
No, no one else.
Waving cartoons.
No, for weaving cartoons.
Oh, gotcha. Wizards of Waverly Place.
That was a good one.
I'd argue that.
So let me set a scene for you right quick.
Oh boy.
It's 4th grade. It's a nice, cool morning. The door opens, and your teacher rolls in a cart with a big box TV on it, and below it on the shelf is a box of VHS tapes labeled Magic School Bus.
Oh my god.
Those
That was-
were the
those-
days,
I
my
mean,
friend.
That's how you knew the day
We
was
were
gonna be-
living.
Yeah, better than your birthday.
Yeah,
Shout out to Carly.
Like real
So
talk.
good.
Used to love when
Magic School
substitute teachers were in because it was, without a doubt, it was a Magic School Bus day.
Yeah, back to school bus.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it was always a Magic School Bus.
I feel like
Every time.
I don't know. My school's go-to movie was always like any time that, like we had a substitute in, and I think this is also something we probably should have mentioned earlier. Space Jam was the one we went to.
Space Jam.
Yeah,
Oof,
not really
tough.
a show,
Half
but
animated, half not.
yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have a big movie debate at a later
Yeah,
date.
no, movies is
Yeah.
a whole nother,
Whole nother thing.
It was Yo Gabba Gabba.
Oh, I was gonna say.
That's what I was thinking.
I was gonna say that too.
Okay, that made me feel so much better.
Yeah, I was gonna say that too. I kind
Oh,
of.
wait. We've had this whole conversation, but we forgot the obvious choice. Tom and Jerry. Oh,
Okay.
yeah.
I think Ethan mentioned that. At the
I
beginning.
mentioned it. Okay.
The OGs, Looney
Yeah.
Tunes, Tom and
Oh,
Jerry,
yeah.
Popeyes.
Scooby Doo,
Oh yeah.
Popeye.
I was a big
Popeyes,
Popeyes guy.
Popeyes.
Popeye's a little bit before our time, though.
I still
Still
watch
on.
it.
Yeah.
It's still on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I liked all those shows for what it's worth.
That was legit my entire childhood. Not afraid to admit it. It was that, and then Phineas and Ferb.
Yeah.
So I had a very sheltered childhood. Gonna break some news to you people. First started watching SpongeBob last year, like officially watching it. Like I had seen bits and pieces of it like before, but never officially like watched it until like last year. That's a sin, and I understand that, and I repent my sins to God, especially now.
I think we just feel bad for you, to be honest. I mean, we
know.
just had a better childhood.
I
To be
know.
fair, you had a better like
I know.
time watching it during that. Than we
I know some kids, their parents wouldn't let them watch SpongeBob, and I don't.
My
really get
parents
that.
were
were
like
like
that
that.
about it. My
Like,
parents, and
hesitant
my
to
parents
let me-
cut us off
What's
from
the-
Fairly Odd Parents
What's
for
the
a good
logic
2
behind
years.
that? Like,
What?
what's the logic behind like not letting your kid watch SpongeBob?
It wasn't SpongeBob. My parents kind of didn't want us to, but we did anyways. But it was Fairly Odd Parents that my parents were like, "That's just weird. There's no reason if you're watching that. It's kind of screwed up."
I know my parents were not SpongeBob fans. I think their reason particularly was like not the main reason, but the first reason was that it was just annoying. They were annoyed by it. The other part was that there are so many like adult undertones that we wouldn't understand that now I think are hilarious, but back then I just wouldn't have gotten.
Very true.
Yeah. So once again, shout out Stephen Hillenburg.
Yeah.
You know, I
Yeah.
think we all.
Thank
yeah,
you for
thank
my
you.
childhood.
Thank
so
you.
much.
Rest in peace. Thank you guys very much for joining us on this stroll down memory lane. This has been a load of nostalgia for the J3 West boys. It's been good to hear. I hope this motivates you to maybe watch an old episode of SpongeBob or your favorite TV show. But yeah, so that's been this episode. Thank you for joining us. This has been Heat Check with Abhishek Goyal.
Daniel Constantino.
Ethan Dewald, Dylan Wolfson.
Aaron Jaffe.
Brandon LaRocco.
and Logan Rakes.
See you guys next time.